You think about your future more than most people do. You've mapped out the vision, where you want to be in a few years, what kind of life you want to build, the version of yourself you're working toward. You can see it clearly. Sometimes at night, lying in bed, you rehearse conversations you'll have when you've made it. You imagine the relief, the pride, the proof that you weren't wasting time after all. But here's what's strange. Despite how vivid that future feels, despite how badly you say you want it, you don't move toward it. Not really. You think about it, you plan for it, you consume every possible content about it. But when it comes time to sit down and do the work that would actually get you there, something inside you goes quiet, still, heavy, and you become what psychologists call a high-potential avoider. You're not lazy in the traditional sense. You're not apathetic. You care deeply. That's the problem. You care so much that the gap between where you are and where you want to be feels unbearable. So instead of closing it, you avoid looking at it altogether. And this isn't new. Even Hamlet stood paralyzed in a castle, sword in hand, knowing exactly what needed to be done, but thinking, always thinking instead of acting. His tragedy wasn't ignorance, it was the weight of knowing, paired with the inability to move, and you are living a quieter version of that same play. Let's walk through a day. You wake up with intention. Today will be different. You'll start that project. You'll make progress. You tell yourself this as you reach for your phone, just to check the time, just to see if anything important came in. 5 minutes becomes 20. A notification pulls you into a thread. A video autoplays. Your attention fractures before you've even left bed. You make coffee. You sit down. You open your laptop. The file is right there. The blank document. The half-finished draft. The thing you said you'd work on yesterday and the day before. But first, just a quick scroll. Just to ease in. Just to check what's happening in the world. Just to see what other people are doing. The tab opens. Time compresses. What feels like 10 minutes is 40. And now it's too late to start properly. You tell yourself that you'll begin after lunch. Lunch comes and goes. The afternoon feels thick, sluggish. You're tired now, even though you haven't done anything. So you tell yourself you'll work tonight. When it's quiet, when you're focused. Night arrives, you're on the couch. A video essay about productivity, an article about discipline, a thread about people who turn their lives around. You consume it all. You feel something close to motivation. You bookmark it. You tell yourself tomorrow will be different. Then you lie down. And the guilt shows up. Not loud, not sharp. Just a dull ache. A quiet voice that says, you did it again. And the next day the loop repeats. This is the habit loop in action. Q is the discomfort or uncertainty. Routine is the distraction. Reward is the temporary relief. Your brain has learned that avoidance works. Not forever, but just long enough to make it through the next hour without feeling the weight of what you're not doing. The problem is that days stack into weeks, weeks into months, and the dream you keep rehearsing starts to feel more like a taunt than a plan. The truth is that you are not one person. You are two. There's the part of you that wants to grow, that sees the future, that feels pulled toward something greater. This part is ambitious, restless, hungry. It doesn't accept mediocrity. It wants mastery. It wants to build something that matters. But there's another part, older, deeper. This part doesn't care about your future. It cares about your survival, your safety, and in its eyes, effort is a threat. Uncertainty is danger. Failure is exposure. So when you sit down to work on something that matters, this part of you activates. It whispers, not yet, not like this, you're not ready. And it offers you something easier, something safe. A video, a scroll, a snack, anything that soothes the discomfort. But this isn't weakness. This is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. For most of human history, conserving energy was smart. Taking risks without certainty was dangerous. Your ancestors who hesitated, who avoided unnecessary effort, who stayed close to what was familiar, they survived. But you don't live in that world anymore. The threats aren't physical, the risks aren't life or death, and the behaviors that once kept you safe are now keeping you stuck. Protection has become a prison, and this is why your brain hasn't caught up. It still treats a difficult task like a predator in the grass. And so it does what it's always done, pulling you away from the discomfort and toward the dopamine, the quick hit, the easy reward. And every time you follow that pull, you reinforce the loop. But what's fascinating is that avoidance doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like relief. When you close the document and open Instagram, your body relaxes. The tightness in your chest eases. The low-level dread fades. Your brain floods with dopamine, not because you accomplished anything, but because you escaped something. And that's the trap. Because avoidance isn't neutral. It doesn't pause your progress. It reverses it. Every time you choose distraction over action, you're not just losing time. You're unknowingly training your brain that the work is something to be feared. You're deepening the association between effort and threat. You're teaching yourself that you are the kind of person who doesn't follow through. And over time, that becomes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who's building something. You start seeing yourself as someone who thinks about building something. And there's a difference, a painful one. The gap between who you want to be and who you're becoming grows wider, and with it comes a quiet, creeping loss of self-respect. This is the hidden cost, not the missed opportunities, not the lost time. Those are real, but they're external. The real damage is internal. It's the slow erosion of your belief in yourself. It's the way you stop trusting your own word. You say you'll do something, and then you don't. You make a plan, and then you abandon it. You set a goal, and then you let it dissolve. And each time a small part of you learns, I am not reliable. This isn't dramatic. It doesn't happen all at once. It's subtle, like rust, like roots cracking pavement. You don't notice it until one day you realize you've stopped making promises to yourself altogether. Because what's the point? The weight of unfulfilled potential isn't loud. It's quiet. It sits in your chest and shows up when you're alone. When you see someone else doing what you said you'd do. When you're lying in bed at night and the silence makes space for the truth. All of this makes you upset about where you are, what you are. And so, you argue about motivation. And the thought shows up in your mind. If I was just as motivated as the rest of them, I would have been more disciplined. If I had that willpower, I wouldn't be in this situation. But this thought is flawed. It is based on the lie that you have been told for ages. You've learned that motivation is the starting point. That you need to feel ready, energized, inspired before you act. The successful people wake up, fired up, and stay that way. It's not true. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are like the weather, they come and go. They may have been useful when they showed up, but you can't build a life around them. Something so volatile, so fragile, can't make you disciplined. Because discipline isn't a personality trait. It's not something you either have or don't have. Discipline is a system. It's a set of structures you build so that action happens, even when motivation doesn't. The people you admire, the ones who seem unstoppable, they're not relying on how they feel. They've designed their environment, their schedule, their identity in a way that makes the work inevitable. They don't wait for readiness, they act. And readiness follows. You've been waiting for the feeling to arrive, but the feeling comes only after the action. And here's where perfectionism comes in. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right time, the right setup, the right energy, the right clarity. But let's be honest, perfectionism isn't about standards. It's about safety, a defense mechanism adopted by the brain to survive once again. It's a way to avoid being seen, a way to avoid the possibility of trying and failing. Because if you never start, you never have to face the gap between your potential and your performance. Smart people are especially vulnerable to this, because you've spent your life being good at things quickly. You've been rewarded for the natural ability. So when something requires sustained effort, when it requires being bad before you're good, it feels wrong. It feels like exposure, like the truth that makes you feel maybe you're not that special after all. This is the curse of being smart, of being highly capable. And this curse forces you to wait. It forces you to refine, research, and keep planning for eternity. You tell yourself you're being strategic, but really, you're protecting the version of yourself that exists only in theory. The version that could be great, if only you tried. Because as long as you don't try, that version stays theoretical, and you stay stuck. Let's go deeper. The reason you avoid action isn't just the fear of failure, it's also the fear of knowing. Right now, you can tell yourself you're capable of great things. You can hold on to the belief that if you really committed, if you really tried, you'd succeed. But the moment you try, that belief is at risk. What if you give it everything and it's not enough? What if you work hard and still fail? What if the gap between your dreams and your ability is wider than you thought? French existential philosopher Sartre called this bad faith, means living in a way that avoids the full weight of your freedom and responsibility. You'd rather preserve the fantasy of who you could be than face the reality of who you are right now. And so, you conveniently stay in the in-between, not failing, not succeeding, just waiting. But here's the truth. The fantasy version of yourself will never do anything. Only the real one can. And the real one has to be willing to suck, to stumble, to be seen in the messy middle. The real you must redefine failure, because failure is not the end of the story. It's feedback, it's data, it's the friction that sharpens you. Every person you admire has failed more than you've tried. The difference is they kept moving. They treated failure as information, not identity. Nassim Taleb talks about anti-fragility, the systems that get stronger under stress. You're not fragile. You don't break when things go wrong. You adapt. You learn. But only if you're in motion. Inaction is the real failure, not because it's dramatic, but because it's invisible. It doesn't teach you anything. It doesn't move you anywhere. It just keeps you exactly where you are, and where you are isn't where you want to be. Here's what you need to accept. You will never feel ready. Nobody could, because life will surprise you. And when it does, it's only the courage to fail, to keep moving, which could really prepare you. But this confidence doesn't come before action. It comes after. After you've done the thing scared. After you've started badly and kept going anyway. If you're waiting for some internal shift, some moment of clarity where everything aligns and action feels easy, that moment would never come. Because such moment or such feeling doesn't exist. What exists is this: the decision to act despite the resistance. To override the part of your brain that says not yet. To build the identity of someone who follows through, one small action at a time. This is behavioral override. It's not about willpower. It's about structure. Start smaller and meaningful. Stick to the 2-minute rule. If you want to write, don't commit to an hour. Commit to 2 minutes. If you want to build something, don't plan the whole thing. Take the first step, the smallest possible version. Starting small automatically reduces the reluctance to act. Because smaller the effort, easier it appears to your brain, and your brain loves easy. Therefore, the goal isn't to finish. The goal is to start, because starting breaks the loop. It rewires the association between effort and threat. It builds consistency, and consistency beats intensity, always. One small action, repeated, builds identity, and your identity drives behavior, because you become what you do repeatedly. But this is still a battle half won. Along with building consistency, you need to alter your environment, because man is the product of his environment. Your surroundings, they are not neutral, they shape you. If your phone is next to your bed, you'll check it. If your workspace is cluttered, you'll feel scattered. If the friction to start is high, and the friction to distract is low, you'll get distracted. Distractions are not dependent on a fragile willpower. They are dependent upon something called choice architecture. The idea that the design of your environment determines your decisions more than your willpower does. So the smartest thing you can do is stop relying on discipline and start designing your space so the right choice is the easy choice. Remove temptation. Add friction to distraction. Make the work visible and simple to begin. This isn't weakness. This is strategy. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You need to stop learning. Not forever, but for now. You've consumed enough. You've read enough articles, watched enough videos, saved enough threads. Information has become a substitute for action. It feels productive. It feels like progress. But it's not. Knowing is not doing. If you spend 5 hours consuming content and 0 hours creating, you're not moving forward. You're rehearsing. You're stalling. Here's a rule. For every 1 hour you consume, create for 5. Shift the ratio, or you'll spend your whole life preparing to start. And as you reduce your consumption of motivation, you must also give up on the fear of rejection. Give yourself permission to be bad. Your first draft will be terrible. Your first attempt will be clumsy. That's not a flaw, that's the process. You know what good looks like, but you're not there yet. And that gap is painful. But the only way to close it is through volume, through repetition, through showing up even when the work isn't good. You don't need to perform, you just need to practice. And when you fall off, don't spiral. Setbacks are not evidence that you're broken. They're part of the path. Shame doesn't motivate change, it paralyzes it. What works is acknowledgement without judgment. You slipped, you're human, now return. This self-compassion reduces performance anxiety. It gives you the self-confidence required to overcome fear of failure. Because the skill here isn't avoiding failure, it's returning after failure. That's where growth lives. And here's the final truth. You are not your behavior. You are not your patterns. You are not the loop you've been stuck in, but you are responsible for what comes next, because no one is coming to save you. No perfect moment will arrive. No sudden burst of clarity will make this easy. What you have is now, and the choice to act. When this video ends, I want you to do one thing, one irreversible action. Stand up, open the file, write one sentence, send one message, take one step, not because it will fix everything, but because it will break the pattern. And that's where the real change begins.